excited to welcome Mayor Bondi, and he's going to introduce everybody, but more importantly, we have many of our Vietnam veterans here, so this is an exciting day that they'll be able to talk with you and kind of share their stories and tell you a little bit about how they served our country, which was a wonderful thing that they did, and we will always remember that. So today, the mayor's office with Miss McKee and Miss Tornicki and the ELA teachers, they set up this whole kind of recognition and breakfast this morning so we can honor them and speak to them and have a lovely morning. So I'd like to introduce Mayor Bondi.
Good morning, and thanks for having us. Always good to be with you. I'm the one who looks like Adam Levine now. I wanted to start the program this morning, first of all, by having Lizzie Regovich come up to do the Pledge to the Flag, and the color guard from the American Legion Post 678 is going to do the presentation. You got a DD over there? No. All stand. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's always good to be back and meet with you. You were one of the first classes that I read Dr. Seuss to when you were in kindergarten. You probably don't remember that because you couldn't even tie your shoes. So I understand you're doing a lot better with that. That's a good thing. So, and then we did what we called the Mayor's Challenge. We're calling it the Mayor's Challenge, the 5th grade legacy in 5th grade with you. And that was pretty exciting. Do any of you remember which tree is yours? What number is your tree?
5.
5, is he right? Because I don't know. I'd have to look it up. It keeps turning off. So we'll take your word for it. It's 5. What was your project? Do you remember?
No.
What was your project? Your legacy project. Do you remember? Anybody remember? One person remembers. Oh my gosh.
In the courtyard by the library, we did it, and it was
Oh, the courtyard at Royal View. So this year they're doing something interesting. They're going to be working with a monument company, and we are designing a memorial to police dogs in Lake County. So that's kind of exciting. So, you know, we come back here then in 8th grade to engage the students again in the community. He doesn't want me to talk. He keeps stealing the microphone away. When I taught here, we never had a microphone. We just had to scream at kids in the cafeteria. One of the things that we're looking to do is with you is engage the 8th graders. This is the 3rd year we've done it, and it's an exciting project for you because now you get to engage with veterans, and you get to learn a little bit about the Vietnam era. You learn a little about them, and then you're going to present them with special proclamations from the mayor's office. And when they get their proclamation, each of you veterans, I want you to notice on there, there's officially a day named after you. Now this is read into the minutes at a city council meeting. We already did that. And we're going to staple all the names and the dates to the next agenda minutes so that it's officially on the city's records for all time. And you will have then a special day in your honor, and that on that day on the electronic sign in front of City Hall, it'll say, today we honor then your name, your branch of service, and it'll say Vietnam vet. So if you want to take your family over there and get a picture taken, the date's right on your proclamation. So we are excited about having you here. Last August, when I was diagnosed with cancer, a lot of things go through your mind, and the one thing that struck me is that I think cancer, and we're probably all going to get it, is a way of God's way of saying, you know what? You got to start focusing on what's really important in life. and probably circus elephants aren't going to be top on the list. And so I thought about my family. I thought about, really? Is it on now? So far, so good. I thought about my family. I thought about my friends, and of course the community. And then yesterday when I was sitting getting chemotherapy, it takes 4 hours where they pump poison in you. I was sitting there thinking, first of all, about the 8th graders and the different opportunities that Willowick gives you to engage in the community and make the community better. I think that's one of the reasons why we have such great kids in this city, that you are engaged in the community, involved in the community. There's a third engagement that you're going to get that you don't even know about, and I'll tell you what it is and you'll forget it because you don't have to do anything. And that's the week before you graduate from high school, you're going to get a big fat envelope from City Hall, Office of the Mayor, and inside there will be a resolution from City Council with your name on it in a really beautiful folder that commends you for graduating from high school, wishes you the best of luck, and then a letter from me reminding you that your heart and part of you will always be in Willowick. So if you go into service, if you go to go to college, you go to work, but still remember that Willowick is your home and you're invested in here. So that's really important for you to remember that. So 3 times we come back at you to remind you that you're an important part of this community. And really, what other city does that? Nobody does that except Willowick. So we're lucky to have you, and you're lucky to be able to have these opportunities. One of the things that I thought about yesterday also were the veterans, and I'm excited about having them here. These are men and women who are in my generation, the baby boomers. So arguably the coolest generation in the history of America, probably the best looking. How many of you think so? I can't believe kids are raising their hands. We're the ones that gave you all those video games. So, Vietnam was a difficult time. That whole era was so different because when I was in high school, and then when I graduated from high school, went into college, and even when I started teaching right here in this building, times were different. Times were changing. We didn't know what they were changing into. It was a confusing time, and yet these men and women still gave up parts of their lives, time in their lives, to serve their country. And I would say to you that they are heroes twice. And the reason for that is, during World War II, we saw the face of evil. We knew who Hitler was, or they knew who Hitler was. I was not around then. But it was kind of obvious who Hitler was, and we needed to nail him and stop this. Korea, much the same thing. We're stopping the advance of communism. Vietnam was a little confusing because we weren't quite sure what that was all about. And despite that, these men and women either volunteered or were drafted to serve their country with the same enthusiasm and the same patriotism that people did during World War II. And unfortunately, sometimes when they came back, because the war wasn't popular, they weren't given the honors that should have been due to them. So I think it's exciting that 188 8th graders and the city, on behalf of all the residents, will honor you today. So we thank you for that, and we certainly owe you a big applause. What other city does that? So, I told you you'd be awarded a special proclamation with a day established in your honor. We will be calling each veteran by name, and your proclamation is at your table and will be given to you by the students. It should be in front of you now. And we do it this way because when we call your name, we don't want you to come up here. We're going to go to you because we think it's important that we honor you, so we'll come to you. You served our country, we owe you that. So that's the symbolic part of this ceremony where instead of coming up to the podium, we'll come to you. Okay? And we'd like to begin. I will read the names, and we want to spend most of our time with the 8th graders asking you questions. They'll need to know felony convictions, girlfriends, all that kind of stuff. Nah, you don't need to know that. They do have questions for you, and feel free to to have open discussions with them. And I understand from your teachers, you're very excited about this and you're really interested to learn. So we're glad to be able to provide that opportunity. The first is Ken Babonix, and I'm going to have somebody from your table just briefly read, not the whole proclamation, but just read the back of it. You'll do that?
Ken Bubonic, the Army. He served from 1965 to 1967 as a radio teletype operator.
Thanks, Ken. Patricia O'Connor Babonix.
Patricia O'Connor Bubonic, Navy. She served from 1965 to 1967. She was a nurse, a trained corpsman for the duty in Vietnam, and cared for veterans returning from action.
Just to let everybody know, I'm sure you heard the name, but this is Mr. Babonix here.
Right.
I don't know if you associate that.
It's on their proclamation that they gave birth to him. Ronald Demiza. Who's going to do this? There you go.
Ronald B. Demza, Army, served 1969 to 1972, helicopter repairman, helicopter gunner, crew chief, and non-commissioned officer in charge allied shops.
Tom Fuller.
Thomas C. Fuller, Air Force, served 1969 to 1973, maintained electronics on airborne and Doppler navigation systems, also doing flight line and shop repair.
Wayne Halbrook. Wayne?
Over here.
I remember you from basketball back in the 70s, before I was born. Cameron?
Wayne Halbrook, served 1961 and 1963, radio telegraph operator.
James People?
Jim Kickle, Coast Guard, 1973 to 1977, electronics technician on Coast Guard cutter Madrona.
He's not with us this morning. Richard Kasimba?
Richard Kasimba, Army, 1971 to 1972, Clark typist and Army Depot.
Stephen Lewa?
Stephen Levi, Army, 1968 and 1970, machine gunner in the mechanized and
Jim Loomis. I've known since I was a little kid. I know he's here close by. Okay. Jim is also a parent of a teacher at Royal View.
Jim Lomas. Jim Lomas, Army, 1967 through 1969. M80 mortars and carrying M82 RPG and PR-25 radios.
John Pennington. Did I not teach with you for a number of years here at Willowick?
I was going to say, Mayor Bondi, he's the teacher for Willoughby Eastlake here at Willowick and then Willoughby South. Mm-hmm.
John R. Pennington, Air Force, served 1971 through 1975, aircraft repairman with hydraulic systems.
John Ross.
John R. Ross, Navy, 1971 to 1974, commissions technician with top secret code word clearance.
Can you tell us some of the secret code words? We won't tell anyone. Okay. George Sari. I remember George. Here you go. Who's reading it?
George Sari, Marine Corps, 1962 to 1966, gunner and bus driver.
Joe Simonitis. I didn't see him. Is he here, Joe Simonitis? No? You want to read his plaque, though? Just to read the back?
Joseph Simonitis, combat engineer and radio operator, 1963 to 1965.
Richard Williams.
Richard D. Williams, Army, 1965-1967, combat military policeman and depot security.
There's a condition called chemo brain when you're on chemotherapy and you forget things, and I forgot Joe Fishland. Sorry, Joe. He is not only a Vietnam vet, but he's also an officer at the American Legion. We're especially happy to have him.
Joe Fishline, Marine, served 1967 to 1971, avionics technician on a C-130 aircraft.
Wanted to introduce a few other people really quick. Sue Rovish is my administrative assistant who helped put a lot of this together. Sue's in the back. Mr. Rodman and Mr. Wilson, you know. Steve Thompson, the superintendent, isn't here. Oh, he is here? There he is. Okay, there he is in the back. Thanks for being with us. And you're a Marine veteran, are you not? Okay. Just a quick comment that a lot of these guys, when they and women, when they went in the service, they either were drafted or went in on their own. If you're drafted, you're in for 2 years, correct? 2 years. And if you signed up voluntarily, you're in for 4?
3 or 4.
3 or 4? Okay. Of all of those, 58,193 never made it home. They not only gave up a couple years of their life, but they also gave up their lives. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, that freedom really isn't free, and they paid for it in their lives, and we thank them also. There's only one Willowick resident that I know of, and there may have been others. His name was John McGlue. He was older than me, but when I was a kid here, there were 10,000 kids in Willowick, and we just hung around in our neighborhood. He lived on the opposite side of my street on Fairway Boulevard. And I think he died in about 69. And he's the only Willowick person I know of that died in the Vietnam era in the war. And so whenever I go to Washington, either as the mayor or as the education dean at Lake Erie College when I was working there, I always went to the Vietnam Memorial and I always looked him up. I thought, you know, I'm your mayor, I just want to look you up and thank you for your service and thank you for giving your life. You don't know of any others, do you? Any of you? I believe he's the only one. And Sue and I looked him up and we couldn't find him or any relatives in the area. We couldn't even find anyone with that name. So we're going to spend the rest of the time with you, you with your veteran, and we hope you have some lively conversations, and we know that you will. So the rest is up to the 8th graders.
Brother, he brought out a friend, Holderman. He had a hard time too. I was kind of fortunate. I was radio work and I had everybody around me because we had a few people on the line, so all the other units could know what's going on. If they said anything for help, we'd be there.
Like a nurse's aide would, and then they came to me, and all the nurses and the doctors there had to train them as to what to do when they got to Vietnam, and they were out in the countryside with the soldiers. And one thing that they learned, and
freaked out. I was in my 20s, but my mom was still pretty new, so it didn't affect me that much, other than disrupting your life. So I went from living in California to being deployed overseas.
I've had two of my brothers were in the Navy at the time, and one uncle was in there.
A whole bunch of young guys.
I chose Army, and they gave me a choice. You can walk, you can slide, or you can drive.
Lots of sports.
It was really strange when I enlisted because I had just started working on cars, so I didn't know very much about them other than what my dad.
I should have brought a picture, buddy.
Matter of fact,
I was 21 when I joined and 25 when I got out.
I didn't want to be in the infantry, so I chose.
The only time I went overseas was for 14 days because I was stationed in Fort Hood, Texas. I was in a strike outfit, which you're prepared to go anywhere. The desert, to the Arctic.
We ended up at a naval air station in Quonset Point, Rhode Island, where we ended up doing training missions with jet fighters that would train for shooting down hard thing to hang your clothes on.
Someone had to stay up.
Pardon me?
Did someone have to stay up?
Yeah, we had guard duty 24 hours a day protecting the post.
But I'll say one thing.
Were you ever on guard duty? Oh yeah, I spent half my career on guard duty. But where I was at,
Did you keep a personal diary?
Actually, what I did was I wrote a lot of letters back to my parents. I
You guys can still
I also had a tape recorder there, so I could talk into the tape recorder and mail the cassette back.
I wanted to go to aircraft maintenance. So I thought, okay, well, next school I'm going to learn how to be a student. Part-time, because I was 21. Older than a lot of the other guys. I was like the big brother to a lot of the guys in basic training. A lot of them were 18, 19. So
shield, right? So anything that you really wanted kept from being ruined from water or anything, or mud or whatever, you kept them in these. Everybody had one. So wherever you went, you carried that with you. So I had all my letters. So letters were a big, big deal.
The thing is, when I got together with everybody in Mouse Bay last year, pick up where you left off. Like, just the same conversation you were talking about 40 years ago, you're talking about now. Remember when this guy did this, remember when this guy did that, all the silly things you did, talking back.
What would you have done?
See, when you volunteer for a branch of service, you don't know what they're going to give you. They could put you in the infantry, they could put you in schooling, they could put you in computers. Of course, back in '62, they didn't have computers that much, but you never know what you're going to get. And you just have to basically do what they tell you to do and where you're going to go.
Nobody over there did either. They would sit in the corner and nobody would eat them. You learned to like them. If you had nothing else to eat, you learned to like them.
So, what were the nights like in Vietnam?
Noisy. Yeah, they would have these cannons that are, I forget how long, I wasn't in the armored division. Wellington, New Zealand, then we went to Australia, and then to Rio, and then back home to Charleston, South Carolina. That's where we were home ported. That was our home port. And then in November of '65, we went to Vietnam. We left Charleston and went straight to Vietnam. Our job
I'd like to take about another 30 seconds for you to thank your vet for being here and thank him or her for their service to our country and keeping us free. And then Mrs. Rodman will dismiss you to return to your classrooms. And thank you for a wonderful day for all the 8th graders, and thank the veterans for being here with us. That's important to all of us. Thanks.